Hello lovely people, today we'll be unboxing this box and inside we're gonna find very cool drivers. Before we do the actual unboxing, I would like to thank Am from MB8.e for sending me these drivers. If you're interested in anything One Audio that you want to buy in the UK or in Europe, because he does ship everything wherever, check out MB8.e and you can find basically all the One Audio products from subwoofers all the way up to tweeters. What I want to start with is the actual box and the packaging, because I don't know about you guys, but me, whenever I receive any kind of product, the packaging is the first thing that goes to the bin. And to me personally, packaging doesn't matter at all. So when a company packs stuff, everything super simple in a normal regular gray box, I know that all the money that I'm paying is gonna be for the stuff that's inside and not outside. If you receive a pair of speakers in a wooden posh box, you know that some of that money went into the actual box and not 100% in the driver. Now, you personally might think otherwise, but this is just my thing. And we have exactly the same situation with the mid-range drivers. So mid-ranges came in a box like this. I do have those mid-ranges now in my car installed, but they come in a regular, normal, simple box. So this is exactly the same box. We have some packing foam inside, and inside we have these lovely mid-bass drivers. So I'm gonna take one out. XT connectors, we're going to talk about those as well, and there's another one, so I'm just going to take out one, not two. As I mentioned, nothing fancy, but the drivers are safe and protected. So these drivers come with the XT60 connectors, exactly the same as the mid-range drivers, and these are great. I think only recently people in America started to use these, but in the UK I believe all SQ installs use these XT connectors because they're just great. If you make your main speaker cable with one end, then if you want to swap out speakers, you just buy some of these and just plug and play. I love these connectors, and the fact that they come with these covers, it's even better because they look very nice. So the mid-ranges come with exactly the same XT connectors. Now, One Audio. This is my favorite brand from now on, apart from Alpine. I love Alpine amplifiers and stuff. I did love Alpine speakers. I do have the Alpine HDZ, but now I bought the One Audio subwoofer IB3V3. I do have the wide bands, and now Am send me these mid basses. So these are called MB8.e. So basically mid bass 8-inch entry line, because I do believe they're working on some extra lines that might be a bit more expensive and more premium. So a little bit about One Audio. One Audio is an American company that was established by a speaker engineer designer from FI. So if you know, FI had infinite baffle subwoofers. A lot of people had them, and then they started the company probably a year or 2 years ago. It's kind of a fresh company, and they started everything with a subwoofer. So they kind of tried to upgrade the FI infinite baffle subwoofer, and now they have quite a few of them, a 12-inch, 15, 18, and they have a 24-inch. They have home theater subwoofers, and they have a whole line of speakers. So they do make these 8-inch mid-bass drivers. They do have 3-inch mid-range, and they have a 1 or 1.5-inch tweeter. Now these mid-bass drivers, since they're kind of entry line, they're supposed to be cheap, and they are cheap. In the US, they retail for $150. Two 8-inch mid-bass drivers for $150. I think that is super cheap. In the UK, they're slightly more expensive, £200, but that's what you get when you have import tax and everything else. Now, as I mentioned, these are 8-inch, however, they're very shallow. I don't know how if you can see this through the camera, but they're super shallow for an 8-inch. I do believe my Alpine HDZs are something like more like this, which are 6.5s, and these 8s, they're super shallow. So they were designed to fit in doors or in infinite baffle applications. So we know that in SQ, whenever you have like infinite baffle subwoofer, you need a lot of mid bass. So people solve that by having front subwoofers or 8-inch drivers in the kicks or doors. And these are designed specifically for that. So if you have doors that can take only shallow drivers, these gonna fit perfectly. So from when I'm looking at this, it looks to me that everything looks like a normal driver. The motor structure, everything is kind of the same, but like this section, the basket, it looks kind of compressed compared to like any other normal driver. And the spider, you can barely see the spider. It is there, it's just very deep in, and you cannot really even touch it, just because the goal was to make it super shallow. The basket itself is stamped steel. It does ring a little bit. However, when everything is so compact, there's not a lot of like flat panels, so the ringing is not really like ringing. You have that typical sound, but it doesn't ring like a bell. I've seen drivers that ring much worse. And with stamped steel, there's nothing wrong with it, because it is an entry-level driver. It's supposed to be cheap and easily mass-produced. Now this basket, I haven't seen it before, especially like with these protrusions. So it does look like a bespoke design. It doesn't look like something that you can really literally buy in China or something. If anybody's seen anything on any other drivers, please comment below, because I haven't seen anything like this. So to me, this looks like a bespoke design. Now this backplate mimics the subwoofers as well, and this copper insert, one audio, exactly the same as you have on the subwoofers. And it does look cool, especially if you're gonna have them inverted in the kicks, something like that. They're gonna look very nice. The cone itself is paper. Now this might be slightly concerning for some people, because people will say, oh, if you're gonna have it in infinite baffle or in the doors, you don't want paper, you want some kind of a plastic or something that cannot get wet. However, with the proper quality and correct IB installation, you will not have any water or anything reaching the speaker anyways. Whenever anybody posts any kind of infinite baffle installs, especially with kicks or under the seats, there's always 100 comments about the water ingress. Oh, the driver is gonna get wet or something like that. But there were many people that demonstrated, including me, that when you remove the driver from infinite baffle application, if you have correct protection in place, the driver will not get wet. So the paper cone is not an issue in my personal opinion. It's not a downside to me at all, mainly because paper cones are very light. And when you have a driver that you want to be loud, just because it is an 8-inch, you have the mid-range driver that is super sensitive. This one is very sensitive as well. So the sensitivity of this driver is 93.3 dB, which is very high for a mid-bass driver. This is similar to like a Pro Audio driver, Pro Audio mid-range. Typical Pro Audio drivers, they don't play very low. However, this one can be crossed, according to the manual and according to some people that already tested it, it can be crossed at 60 Hertz and it will get down. Now, how much excursion it has? It doesn't look like a lot, because you see these accordion surrounds on, again, Pro Audio mid-range drivers. However, this is not a very typical accordion surround, because it does allow for quite a lot of excursion. Now this, to me, it reminds Alpine hammer surround, which you can see on like older type Rs and on some of the mid-bass drivers as well. I cannot really demonstrate the excursion because the drivers are brand new, they're very stiff, but you can see this accordion surround does allow for quite a lot of excursion. Now, these drivers are rated at 150 watts if somebody cares about power ratings, because me personally, I stopped caring about power ratings like probably a year ago, and to me it just doesn't really matter. So 150 watts. Now, they are advertised as 4 ohm drivers. However, DC, they're 3 ohm. So I will need to take the impedance sweep just to double check what's the actual impedance for them is. But if it's a 3 ohm driver, that's just amazing for any kind of 4-channel amplifier, when you can actually pull a little bit more power. It's not 2 ohms, so it's not stressing out the amplifier, but with 3 ohms, it's gonna pull a little bit more. The inductance of this driver is super low, much lower than a typical mid-bass driver, so it will play high all the way up to, I don't know, I'm just guessing, 4, 5, 6 kilohertz probably. So crossing, even if you're gonna have like an old school install with these in the kicks and tweeters next to it in the kick pods, it's not going to be issue to cross them with the tweeters at all. However, as I mentioned, they do have all three ways. So you can have a mid-bass, mid-range, and a tweeter. The FS is 70 Hertz, which is kind of typical for this size mid-bass driver. In home audio for 8-inch, you're probably going to have lower FS. But again, this driver with such high sensitivity, it's not designed to play super low. It will play low, but it's not designed to be like a subwoofer, but it's designed to be very loud. And the QTS of the driver being 0.5 is just perfect for any kind of infinite baffle application, especially if you're gonna have a high pass filter just to chop off a little bit of the bottom end. It's gonna be ideal. Now, probably noticed in the front there is this lip, and then you have this foam that you can compress. So this is going to be perfect if you want to mount them inverted into kicks on a ring or something. So this is going to press against your ring. And if you want to mount them normally, then you'll have to put some gasket around here and just put them like this. Let's have a look at the back. The connections are typical spades, very typical for any kind of driver. So about the mid-range drivers, the mid-ranges don't have these tabs. They have very little tabbies that you're supposed to solder on them. So it's kind of feedback from One Audio. I did have a few people in the comments when I did the previous video about the wide bands, about the mid-ranges, that some people, they cannot solder. So for them, it's kind of a bit of a problem. So maybe consider putting some tabs in there instead of actually soldering. But for these, you can use either spades or you can solder. Now, one funny thing, I don't know if it's funny, but it's funny for me. So this pole vent, when you think about it, if you have this driver mounted inverted, the only way where you can have the air escaping is through these sides. And to be honest, it's not a lot of space in there. You can see only 4 of these. So this vent is massive. Now the thing is, you won't be able to see it, but if you would look, shining a light in there, you will be able to see the dust cap. And if I'm gonna put my finger, which is the smallest one, I can literally touch the dust cap from inside. So you have to be kind of careful if you're going to mount them inverted so that nothing would fall in there, because if something is going to fall in, it's going to go straight into the voice coil, because I can literally feel the dust cap and I can feel the voice coil with my finger in there. So it is quite a big vent pole. And yeah, it doesn't look like an entry budget product. Maybe you would argue that the stamped steel basket make it look cheap, but it doesn't look cheap. It looks like a premium product. It is heavy. It weighs like close to 1.5, I think it's 1.3 kilos, which in pounds, I have no idea how much it is, but it is quite heavy. They don't look as heavy as they feel. This magnet is massive. And that's what you get with a very strong motor. With very light cone, you have extremely high sensitivity. So the plans for these drivers, I will be putting them in my car. My car now is broken down, so it's in the garage, it's being fixed. However, I'm gonna make adapter rings that will go from 8-inch into 6-inch, like a tapered, because I have 6.5-inch holes and rings in my car in IB kicks. I will be putting them in the kicks, because if I want to put them in the doors, I will have to cut my doors. Some cars do have 8-inch drivers from factory. However, when you're gonna put these monsters in the doors and you're gonna cross them at 60, they're gonna rattle the hell out of the doors. So my advice, even if they are designed to put them in the doors, do not put them in the doors, put them in kicks, because these are gonna be beasts, and being so shallow, they're not gonna take any space at all. So stay tuned for an update in a couple of weeks when I'm gonna be installing them. I will be measuring the actual frequency response, the impedance graph. I'm not sure if it's worth doing the distortion measurements, because I know that One Audio is going to be super clean, especially with such low inductance. And we saw from the wide bands test that the wide bands were one of the cleanest as well. So I think these are going to be super clean as well. And for the price, man, 150 bucks or 200 pounds, it's a no-brainer. If you can fit 8, just get them. I can tell you straight away, these are gonna be a killer drivers. So again, thank you Am from sending me these. Thank you One Audio for making these. And slowly but surely, my car is going from Alpine to One Audio. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one.